Welcome back to Business Straight Up with Scotch and Ramen. I'm very excited to introduce our guest today, Bernard Callebaut, who I've been following his businesses for years, and obviously I'm a huge fan of what you've done as a chocolatier, and really excited to speak with you today about some of the successes and challenges and obstacles and wonderful things that you have going on now. So thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you. And thanks for being a fan for many years.
It's wonderful chocolate. So if you could maybe first share with the people that are listening some of your background. How did you end up in Calgary? How did you end up in Canada? And maybe we can start there.
Yeah, well, the family business goes back many years, goes back 1850. We were brewers first. In Belgium, it was very common that the town had 1 or 2 breweries. Yeah. So my family were in the brewing business, and it's the second generation, my great-great-grandfather, that saw the chocolate craze coming up around the 1900s. So in 1911, he started his own chocolate company. And ultimately, we did bean to bar. That was our specialty, and also custom products for other users, like it could be cookie manufacturer, whatever. And that became quite substantial, bigger than the brewery. Then my father took it over in 1945, just after the Second World War. And then my mother sold it in 1980. So that's when I decided I wanted to start the business all over again. And looked around, and ultimately ended up in Calgary. And one of the reasons was because I believed that there's a lot of opportunity in this province, and I wanted to live close to the mountains. That was my other motivation, and here I am.
And so you decided to start a chocolate business in Canada.
Yes.
So what did you always know that you wanted to be a chocolatier, or was
No.
that?
No, I wanted to become a race car driver, but it was a couple of million short to achieve that.
Right.
And ultimately, I studied for engineering. That's my background in study-wise. But ultimately, I'm born beside a chocolate factory. Literally, our house was beside the factory, and so chocolate was always part of my life. Since we played in the chocolate factory, it was our playground. So it was always there. You smelled it. You opened the window. You smelled chocolate. And then ultimately, as I got older, I got more and more interested in the chocolate business. And then after I finished my degree, I said, chocolate is actually a wonderful product. So I did an apprenticeship in Antwerp. And when we sold the business, I said, I want to do it and do what my great-great-grandfather did.
And that's here we are.
Yeah.
So how did you get the name the father of chocolate? Is that?
That's something that is more I didn't dream that up. It's customers. My wife thought after I lost my business that she said, when we started the new company, initially it was called Papa Chocolat, like the father of chocolate. And then she and some of the customers said, the people in Calgary consider you as the father of quality chocolate in Calgary. And so they thought that Papa Chocolat was an appropriate name. I didn't dream that up.
So how did that turn into Master Chocolate? Did it evolve from?
Yeah, it did, and then it was more for legal reasons. We run into some legal stumble blocks to keep on using the name Papa Chocolat. Okay. And even that we liked it, and actually the public, a lot of the people liked the name because it's warm and fuzzy. And but ultimately we had to abandon that. And so we went to Master Chocolat. I had an investor that came on board, and so ultimately we decided to go that route.
To go that way, cool. I mean, obviously, it's the Master Chocolat has been growing as a brand. What were some of the things that you've done in the last little bit that you think have led to the resurgence of your chocolate brand and company?
Well, I am a firm believer that if something very bad happens to you. People that are positively minded, there is an opportunity in that, because it's actually the beginning of be able to reinvent yourself. If you look to a lot of people that are successful in anything, is that they have the capability to reinvent themselves. And ultimately, that was for me the switch that clicked it on to say, okay, I can reinvent myself and I can do much better than I did before. And I'm more enthusiastic now than I was 35 years ago because I see all these opportunities, things like that. Like even today, you know, we have been in the office talking about other products and things like that. I picked up a whole range of beers just now from the liquor store because tomorrow morning I'm gonna make beer truffles for the beer festival this weekend.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yes.
Cool. What makes your chocolate special? What is it about Master Chocolat that is different than other chocolate companies?
I think it's like, you know, in any food business, I think the person that's behind it has the true passion, because there's lots of fake passion floating around. But right. People that are truly passionate, they want to always raise the bar. Like, you know, some people say like, oh, it's a shame you lost your recipes from your old company. I say that absolutely does not matter, because if you want really to be a quality organization, you always want to do different things and make it better. It's always getting better, like find better suppliers, better techniques, better equipment. It is an ongoing process and it never stops. It always goes higher and higher and higher. And that's what makes good, exceptional chocolates.
Have you taken some of the process and different things that were passed down to you from your great-great-grandfather and so on that have helped you become the chocolatier now? Or is it a lot of new kind of evolving process and different things?
And actually, that's a very good question. The thing that I got from my grandfather, father, and great-grandfather is really the love of the business. And that's basically where it stops. The rest is educating yourself, always learning. Like I took a course myself like this year, and people say, why would you take a chocolate course? Do you know what? There's always things you can learn. You stop learning when you're in the graveyard. And I'm very, very convinced about that, because there's always, you never know everything, and there's always things to learn. If I retire, I know what I'm gonna do. I will go and visit cocoa plantations and learn more about that whole side. I probably will never retire. But, and that's the reality, that it is, once you have the passion, you want to learn. And that's how you become better, always learning. I go to trade shows. I was in Germany. I went to a trade show though that is really specialized in chocolate. And you know, you see always new things. You meet people, you talk to colleagues, you exchange ideas, etc. It's an ongoing process. And people that are passionate, they love doing that.
That's what it's all about, is learning and evolving, right?
Yeah, if you are truly passionate and, you know, it is, you're not working, that's the reality, because you found your true passion. That means that that is what you want to do. And if you're fortunate in your life to find what really gets you out of bed, then you're ahead of the game. Right. Because then reinventing yourself, or like in my case where I lost basically everything, you still have the passion, you can redo it. You can do it. You really can. Yeah. If it's not your passion, then it's a problem. Right. Because then you have to go, I have to go to work. That's a totally different dimension. But if you're passionate, you want to do it, and you get going. Awesome.
So tell me a little bit about your manufacturing process and what that looks like. What Master Chocolatier is that a retail store? Is that a mass manufacturing? What does that look like? What does your business look like?
Well, my business today is very artisanal, so it's a small operation. We use equipment, but there is still a lot of handwork involved. So it is definitely not mass production. Okay. No, there is ultimately, we want to grow the business, because like in any other manufacturing, because we manufacture, so we are a manufacturing, there is an economy of scale in it. There's no doubt about it. Some steps are very repetitive. So if you can mechanize that, you're going to ultimately be able to pass that on to the consumer, because you know, otherwise the consumer is paying for your inefficiencies. A very good example is wrapping a chocolate bar by hand. You know, you can only do that many an hour, as a machine can do 15, 20 times faster. Right. You know, and it doesn't add anything qualitatively to the product, because it's still the same chocolate bar. It's simply you're more efficient to do it. So things like that, but you gradually, you become more mechanized, you eliminate repetitive steps, and so gradually you get more and more to more an efficient system. But at this point, it's still very artisanal.
Cool. So maybe you can help me understand what your experience was like starting a business. I mean, you had some passion that you came to Canada with, but finding suppliers and all of these things, how did that evolve? Did you make a lot of mistakes in the early years?
Oh, without a doubt. You do a lot of mistakes, without a doubt. But what I say to people, if you want to get into a business, make sure you have a very good knowledge in what you're gonna do. Like, if you say I'm gonna open a restaurant and because your mother gave you a couple of recipes, you're setting yourself up for likely a disaster, right? But if you go and you're gonna work with top chefs for 4 or 5 years, you're gonna have a tremendous good knowledge from what is really top cuisine, or in my case, top quality chocolates. So if you have the knowledge, I think that's a very important step that a lot of people don't do. And but if you definitely speak about specifically quality, you need to do that. Other things is, the financing, and everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of people run into challenges. Being underfinanced is, of course, a challenge. I had that in the beginning. That was a struggle when I came here. The banks really didn't want to talk to me because I didn't have any history here. I came from somewhere else. Yes, I can tell stories from Belgium, etc., but ultimately that doesn't matter. So that has been a challenge to get the money. So luckily my mother helped me initially to do that. And then you have to build up your business, and that can take a long time, because expect the first years not to make money. If you're going to talk to any accountant, I think that the average rule is 3 to 5 years before you make money.
Right. So that was, in the beginning, that was the biggest challenge for you.
Yes, yeah. The financing is a big challenge. Even now, when I started my new venture, that was a challenge too. And being financed is important. That because a lot of businesses fail because they don't have the proper backbone. I say to people that start, and they don't have a lot of money, try to do it, if you can from your home. If you can keep your overhead to the absolute bare minimum, that's the way to go.
When in the previous chocolate business that you had multiple retail locations and so on. Yes. Have you now changed your strategy to having one or two more dominant locations as opposed to multiple, or?
Yes, definitely. We were set up more like a franchise. We were not a franchise, a dealership, but ultimately we were set up in that way, and the growth was based on opening more retail location. Definitely, I don't want to go this route. I want more to go having some retail stores. I don't know how many, but definitely the amount is not important. It's more to create a brand that people can go in, they see it, they smell it, make some unique stores. In Calgary, we might have 2, 3, I don't know, and then go to Edmonton. But ultimately, the growth, the long-term growth, will be more from taking the brand and taking it in the grocery stores. Certain products, you cannot do everything because some of our chocolates are short shelf life, right. But a lot of the products are long shelf life, and then take them more in the mass market.
So has your distribution strategy changed then over the last few years?
The mass market, I had always that in my mind, but because of business circumstances with the dealerships, we couldn't not materialize that. What was, I think, one of the reasons that that was a handicap for the growth of my old company. But ultimately, yes, we changed more, focusing on growth. And I do a lot of private label too. Okay. I do custom products, people that come in and they say, like, could you make me a chocolate bar with this ingredient or that ingredient? Or people that sell a very specific ingredient, they want to mix it with chocolate because chocolate is is and will be for the future a popular product to eat.
Right, absolutely. So, I mean, there's obviously a lot that has happened in your career as a chocolatier, but what would you say is you're most proud of as an accomplishment?
Ultimately, it is building a reputation. And one thing that I found out, so when I got into the muddy waters and you have to start from scratch with basically nothing, a reputation is your main asset. They can never take that away from you because that's you have built that up. I did that for 30 years, and then ultimately now I found out that ultimately when you have a reputation and you have always done a good quality job, it's something that you carry with you. Like, for example, I use a lot of organic ingredients, and I'm in the store sometimes. I tell to a customer, yeah, you know, but 95% of our ingredients are organic. You don't have to tell me. When you're behind it, we know it will be good. And it's great to hear that, right? It's great to hear that. It's heartwarming. But ultimately, it tells you that people are confident when they know I am behind it. Not because the name is on the door, it's simply because I am making them. That is where the value is.
Right. So it's not the name, it's really
it's
you.
More, yes, and that's the value of a reputation.
So getting back in the game after the challenges that you had, your drive was always, your passion was chocolate. But what's the goal? Are you trying to spread the understanding of chocolate or the artisan nature of chocolate? What was your passion to get back in the ring and keep?
Well, definitely the love of the chocolate, like to make an exceptional product is very satisfying. Okay. That's you make something and people love it. I mean, that's great when you can do that. So, and that's what I wanted to do. I like also on a different side, like I still like the engineering side of it. I love processes and production and things. How can I make it better and more efficient and things like that? So there's two sides of it that I really enjoy.
Right. I mean, we're going to transition a little bit to some challenges, adversity, and different things. And I mean, we've talked a little bit of, that you've had some challenges in the past decade or so. How did you handle all that negativity? I mean, obviously, to me, it seems like you've come out incredibly positive and you feel like you're a much better person as a result. How did you handle that going through all that?
Well, it's very hard on the family. Like, don't I put the smiley face on it, but ultimately it's very difficult for the family because I have young children too. I have a 10 and a 15-year-old. Right. But then when it happened, they were much younger, of course. But I stay positive because I know that I can do it again and I can do it better. Mm-hmm. So I'm very confident that I can make it happen, and I know I can make it better. And even now, they are not all finished, my controversies, because I've still challenges. But ultimately, I focus on what I know, and I focus on the business, and all the rest, I will deal with it. But I want to do a very good job on my business, and ultimately that will get me out of it. So I put my energy in that.
Throughout this whole transition into the new business, did you have mentors that you kind of relied on, or people that, other chocolatiers or entrepreneurs that you went to for advice, or how did you?
Not specifically one person, but I have had different people that you talk to, and people in my friend circle, and that say that's great encouragement. Mm-hmm. That say that's fantastic that you start a business. I had a tremendous support from when I started Papa Chocolat. Friends of mine, they put on a whole party, a launch party. Had a band playing. People donated booze, food, and their room. And I'm forever grateful, and that's very heartwarming. You know who your friends are too. Right. I say to my wife, that's a natural filter. Yeah. When you go through difficulties, it's a natural filter to know who your true friends are, and who were there because you were a known entity.
Right. And by the sounds of it, you had quite a few true friends.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, and that's really a very positive experience that you actually find out only when you go through difficulties.
Right, right. I think it's interesting to have gone through that and realize who really is.
Absolutely,
by your side.
Yes.
Yeah. So, coming back now to Master Chocolat again. Reinventing yourself, you had an opportunity to do this again. So you brought in a lot of the lessons and experience. I would assume that there's still been challenges in the new business. Can you tell us about some of those?
Yeah, well, one of the main challenges is ultimately you start with no funds at all, what is very challenging, and ultimately it has been difficult for many years, and then ultimately I had to ask an investor to come on board because I couldn't do it, and so it goes back to what we initially said. The financial side is a challenge. So it's always important, if you can, to be very well funded, right, and have a reserve, because there's lots of unexpected things that come up. And so that was the financial side was the biggest stumble block
in reinventing yourself.
Yes.
What for a lot of people that's hard to go about securing funding, right? Where do you go? Who do you turn to? So what did you do when you were looking for funding? Obviously, without sharing
Yes.
personal details, but how did you go about finding a partner, finding an investor? How did you select the right person for this venture?
Some people came to me. Some people have been brought forward by other people that they say like, oh, that person is interested to talk to you. So it comes a little bit from all sides. Now it goes back to the reputation. When you have a reputation, you're gonna have easier people listening to you, right? Because you have a track record. I mean, they know the bad side of the history. Mine was published in the newspapers, etc. So there's not hard to dig into that. Right. So they knew the whole background, but ultimately they believed that, he has the knowledge, he has a unique expertise in that field, and we would want to talk to him and see if we can make it into a successful venture.
And was it a challenge for you giving away a piece of your business, in a sense, because it is your passion? It is.
Well, it is in a certain way, but ultimately you have to face reality, right, that you need help. You cannot do it alone, and that's it is what it is. Like, you have a choice, or you keep on doing it from your basement if you have one, right? And do it, and or you get help and then get quicker on your feet. Right.
So, this is kind of hard to distill some of the main lessons that you had learned, but what would some of those be? If you could put your finger on a few of the lessons that you learned in the previous version of your business, what would those be? What were some of the big lessons that you learned?
One of the lessons is like react quicker on event. Like I always say, like I said that on Dragons, then they asked me the question, and I said, why did you went into receivership? And I said, like, ultimately I'm the captain of the ship. Right. I make the decision. I can blame it on the banks, on whatever you want, but ultimately, it's like a captain on a ship. The storm is coming, right? The storm is not going to move away. So you can take actions. You can say, like, I'm going to go through the storm, or you're going to say, like, oh, I'm going to turn left, or I'm going to go backwards, or whatever you do maneuver to avoid it. And I was not fast enough. I didn't see it quickly enough. I should have reacted much faster. I should perhaps have laid off people quicker, because I believe that a company is also a social entity, and you talk to the people, that they have families to feed, etc. But ultimately, I should have been more harder on that, and simply say, like, what, we have to lay off 20% of the staff. We should have done that, because we were still quite a viable. Like, we did a fair amount of volume, right. But ultimately, that's one of the lessons. Like, read it quicker. I remember when I took a course in Switzerland years ago, and he said it's like driving a car. He said, like, you have to look to your fuel gauge and to your oil pressure and this, And when you see that the needle is moving, you react to it. And you see the fuel gauge goes down, 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 and you wait till that boom, and then your car stalls and it's not moving anymore. Yeah. Right. So things like that, you have to look to these indicators, and make quicker decisions, and they are often hard decisions, but ultimately, likely the company could have been saved.
And what about now? Your new business, reinventing yourself again, we keep saying that, but what are some lessons that you've learned again to pass on to other people that are starting another venture or reinventing themselves? What are some lessons you've learned in the last few years?
Yeah, well, one of them is you make sure that when you have if you cannot do the financing yourself, if you need help from outside people, try to find people that understand your business, that talk on the same wavelength as you do, because otherwise it's like everybody's rowing in the opposite direction and the boat doesn't move. Right. And that is very important. So you might find people that are willing to put money into it, but you might not find the right people. And that's not always easy, right? That's not easy, but that's one of the lessons that I learned from in my second venture. That's what you have to pay attention to.
So, looking back, is that something that would be mandatory for you as someone that truly understands the chocolate business, or
retail business, manufacturing business, food business? In my case, it's more food business. Right. In the city, there's a lot of oil and gas people around, and then ultimately they don't really understand always the food business. And then also, when you go top quality product, you have to have people that really understand that. Right. Because it might be okay that you find someone that's in the food business, but they might just be interested in a bottom line operation that moves a ton of product and doesn't have that passion. And so that's more difficult, because ultimately the people that fit in your business the pie becomes smaller and smaller and smaller.
Well, that would be my next question is, when you're in need of money, yes. A lot of times you at least what I would expect is a lot of people be willing to jump at the first person wanting to invest. Yes. So was that a challenge for you to hold out for the right investor?
Well, in the beginning, we took people on. We talked to people that were not in that frame, and then ultimately that created some issues.
Okay. So looking back, you really would focus on that more.
Yeah, that's I speak about now 8-9 years ago, like perhaps I should have found the basement and start making chocolate in the basement and do markets and start smaller and then take someone out later. Right. Yeah. So there's all kinds of, you have to really, every situation is different. But mentors are always good. Like you mentioned earlier from a mentor, if you have a mentor, someone that is or has been in a business that is similar to yours, I think that is very, very useful. I didn't have really like a person that I could go and turn to. I had friends that I talked to, but ultimately a true mentor, that is something that definitely would be very helpful.
A huge asset, yeah.
Yes.
So, there's a lot of people that from the outside look at, we'll say the food service or food manufacturing business, and it might seem easy, or there might be some misconceptions. What would you say those misconceptions are about getting into, the high-end food business?
Well, if you really want to get into the high food-end business, first of all, you don't be tempted to cut corners, because that's how you build up a reputation, right? Like, if you do top quality and that you really use top quality ingredients, that's how you build up the reputation. And that is like one of the basic stones of how to get going.
Right, okay. What about you as an individual? Do you think there's still misconceptions in the public about you?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't really know.
It seems to me that they should be gone at this point. You guys have done amazing things with the new brand, and it's obviously growing and successful, which is fantastic. But I mean, going through something that was so public.
I'm sure there is. One thing is, with all the modern technology and social media, I've never been tempted to read what people write, because it can be extremely destructive.
Yeah.
You have to be very careful with that. So, I advise to anybody that don't pay attention. Focus on what you're doing. And the criticism, now I speak about on the social media, on personal life or whatsoever, you cannot pay attention to it. You simply focus on what you do and keep your nose to the grindstone.
So I mean, before we talk about kind of the future and what that holds for you, if you were to give one piece of advice, number one piece of advice or tip or anything to entrepreneurs right now, what would that be?
Determination. That is like, don't give up. Winston Churchill, that's one of my favorite persons. It's like, never give up, and that's the reality. Like I have run into brick walls, and I still have stumble blocks thrown at me now. But you have to keep going. You cannot be demoralized. You have to really keep pushing and move forward. That is really determination, is a very key asset for a successful entrepreneur.
Perfect. So now what? What are your goals and visions? And I mean, you seem like you have a lot of energy and passion still for the chocolate business. What do you plan to do? What do you want to do in the next few years?
I want to build a business that stands even on a higher level of reputation than what I had before. Okay. And in the future, I would want to be a business that is environmentally responsible. I think that's going to be very part of doing business in the future. Right. That is something we cannot ignore. But ultimately, build up a reputation on quality, and that's what I want to leave as a legacy.
Perfect. Are there any other industries or anything else that you're thinking of getting involved in the near future?
We are getting into the cannabis business, in the edible business. That's what. Yes, we are in a process to get that going, and it's also in the chocolate business, obviously, and I think there's a tremendous opportunity in that, because over 100 years ago it was considered as a medicine, so we're gonna go back to that.
And what isn't better with chocolate, right?
Yeah, well, and chocolate and cannabis go well together. Like cannabis is an oil-based product, and chocolate is an oil-based product, so it really, you can do quite some amazing things with it.
Awesome. We'll definitely have to look out for that. So if the people that are watching want to learn more about you or about your business, or if they might have an interest in custom products, where can they find you? Where's the best place for people to get in touch?
Well, they can call us, find us on Master Chocolat. We love custom products. We really do that. I did a delivery yesterday in one of the hotels in Banff. We made custom-made chocolate bars for them. So we love that. I like, I do more challenging things now than I did before, because I really, it's different. Every project is different. Today I had someone that came in with a product that I had never seen in my whole life, and he wants to make me a chocolate bar with it. So on Monday I'm gonna start doing that, and tomorrow I make beer truffles. Right?
Right. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Well, so masterchocolat.com, is that?
That's correct.
And what about social media? Are you guys active on social media? Is there a place
we are.
where? Okay.
Yeah, we are.
What is the handles on those channels? At Master Chocolat?
You put me on the spot. I don't really know the answer, because I am not. That's one of my downfalls. I'm very good in the technical side. I'm very poor on that side.
I'll tell you what.
We have to improve on that.
We'll post those. We'll post those handles underneath the video if anybody wants to check it out. Bernard, thank you so much. Really appreciate you sharing your story and your passion for chocolate. I'm excited, and I'm sure the viewers will echo this. I'm excited to see where this takes us in the next 5 years, and hopefully we'll see more locations and grocery stores and your product all over the place. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
super. Thank you.